Are these just threats, or is it going to go anywhere?
No, I think these are very real, and I think the Russian economy felt the reaction today. As Secretary of State Kerry mentioned, the ruble fell significantly to the lowest levels against the euro and the dollar. The stock market in Russia plunged more than 10%.
Okay, so you say they're having an effect. I would just come back with, well, then why isn't Putin backing down?
Because Putin has made a political and military calculation, and he believes that in the short term he can handle these sorts of economic declines.
Or does he believe that we actually won't follow through on our threats?
Well, I think he believes on a certain level we won't follow through, especially on a military level. But I don't think he's really calculated to what extent economic sanctions and the market by itself will dictate certain developments on the ground in Russia. Russia is not isolated from these developments.
Richard Falkenrath, I mean, do we have an issue here given what happened in Syria? Do we run the risk that basically he's calling our bluff and we're stuck really not willing to carry through on any threats?
Yeah, we do. And I think that Secretary Kerry's rhetoric is well out in front of what the U.S. and the international community is prepared to do about this crisis. So no one likes the fact that Vladimir Putin has done this to the Crimea. But being able to change that and coerce him into a new policy is a totally different matter. And right now you stack up everything the international community is prepared to do about this crisis, and I think no one believes it's enough to cause Vladimir Putin to change his mind.
Let me bring in Ryan Chilcote here and ask you, Ryan, what is, we're all looking at this from the outside in, but if you look at it from a Russian's perspective, Vladimir Putin just held these fantastic Olympics, and now he's flexing his muscles and taking what they surely think, a lot of them, is rightfully his, no?
Yeah, quite possibly. You know, there is no country that is more important to Putin and the Kremlin than Ukraine from a foreign policy perspective. And I think that they have calculated, and President Putin has calculated, that Ukraine, Crimea, maybe even eastern Ukraine is really, sort of his for the taking. I think at the end of the day, if the G8 countries don't show up in Sochi in May or June, rather, he's probably not going to lose too much sleep. The Russian stocks did plummet today. We did see a little bit of weakness in the ruble. The ruble has been weakening for a good long while, I would point out, along with other emerging markets. On the other hand, we saw oil spike, and that's good for the Russians. So I think this is important for them.
Ryan, and actually I'll throw this one over to Richard. I was reading rereading an essay by Yulia Tymoshenko from 2007 over the weekend. I actually remember reading it in Foreign Affairs, the publication put out by the CFR back in 2007, and she basically predicted this. She said, you've got a guy in charge who's been in charge since 2000. He's now got money thanks to oil, and what he wants to do more than anything else in the world is restore Russia's dominance as an international major player. William, how much is this idea of the Eurasian dream, the idea that Putin could dominate from Russia to China, a part of what we're seeing here today?
I think it's essential in terms of understanding Putin's motivation. He clearly believes in trying to recreate a Eurasian space, and Ukraine is an essential part of that Eurasian space. And indeed, this whole event was triggered by Ukraine's attempt, or at least thinking about signing the EU association agreement that would have pushed it in a different direction.
So what stops him here? Richard, what can possibly stop him? If these threats from Secretary Kerry are not enough, what happens?
And the president. Don't forget the president has said now on a number of occasions this will be costly.
But, it has become typical with Kerry and Obama. Secretary Kerry is well out in front of the president. He's much more overheated in what he says. So what can stop him right now? Very little. There's no cavalry coming to rescue Crimea right now. So if the Ukrainian military is not prepared to put up a fight to stop him, they're going to take control of it. It's that simple.
Does it go further
the question right...
go ahead, William.
The question right now is, I think Crimea, the facts on the ground kind of dictate where things are going. The issue is whether Russia militarily will now strike out against the eastern part of Ukraine. And that's what these statements are trying to at least deter, or at least identify some sort of cost. Whether it deters Putin or not, we don't know yet. But I think those are the statements are being directed for that future action, as opposed to what's actually occurred in Crimea.
Ryan, you're on the ground there in Kiev. Tell me, are people concerned that it's going to go further than Crimea? I mean, does Putin have ambitions that would involve him taking over the rest of Ukraine?
Look, there's no indications that this is anywhere close to over. In fact, the standoff would appear to be about to heat up. The Ukraine has just said that the Russian Navy has ordered 2 of its ships to surrender by what is 10 p.m. your time tonight. That's New York time.
Well, and surely they will. And surely they will. No, Ryan? I mean, what else are they going to do?
Well, it would be foolish for the Ukrainian military to take on the Russian military, right? 2012, Ukraine spent $4 billion on its military. Russia, $77. You know, Russia's got nearly 1 million troops. But,
even more than the
these
Olympics.
Guys have been told to lay down their arms. Yeah, I don't know if they will, but it seems like they probably will. The Russian military says, you know, that is all this talk of this ultimatum is false. They haven't actually given these orders. But there is no one here in Ukraine that underestimates how this could develop at this point. I don't think people were anticipating this, but now that it's begun,
well,
I think
it was
everybody's
certainly
looking.
a surprise. It came as a surprise Saturday, and you know, I think what's sort of a shame here, and Richard, you may have something to add to this, is that we continually are surprised by just how outrageous Putin can be. I mean, people say, oh, my gosh, now he's sending troops in. He's authorized military force. There's a sense that, wait, he did that?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Except for in his mind and except for in Russia, where they don't see it as quite that outrageous. I mean,
That's right.
It's only from our perspective that it's outrageous.
But why is it outrageous for us? Hang on, Ryan. I just want to get
something that the Russians consider outrageous.
Ryan, hang on. I want to get Richard involved.
I mean, first, about the Crimea, people have been worried about this particular flashpoint since the Soviet Union fell apart. So everyone pointed to the Crimea and eastern Ukraine as one of the very dangerous areas. And Boris Yeltsin, then president of the Russian Federation, was willing to let it go and give away some of the Black Sea Fleet and give up So this flashpoint we've known about. Putin himself is willing to use force. But I would say he, in this case, is being reactive, not proactive. He didn't ask for this. Yanukovych, the former Ukrainian prime minister, someone he propped up but disliked, he's the one who fell from power. He's the one who couldn't manage his own street and got tossed out, in a way forcing Vladimir, in his own mind at least, forcing his hand.